All right, guys, it's time to talk about the elephant in the room. Something I've been noticing for a long time, something that's been going on for such a long time, and it's not really something I've been talking about. Usually, when I talk about Angry Joe, I focus on like the Nintendo, the bias against Nintendo and the coverage of like really terrible Marvel products, right? I think Angry Joe is trash, but like I tend to focus almost exclusively in my wheelhouse and focus on like the weird stuff that happens in my sphere. I don't like talking about superhero films because there's no point. It's not my niche. It's not my thing. Even though I think I already have more of a more knowledge and respect for the medium than Angry Joe ever did, because I think he might be a poser when it comes to comics and superhero films as much as he is for games. But like one of the things I've been leaning more and more to try and talk about when it comes to Angry Joe and his ridiculous like behavior is his movie coverage. I've been talking about how like a lot of his scores don't make sense, and that is something that a lot of people bring up. Like whenever people like make fun of Angry Joe on the internet or whatever, they'll typically bring up Suicide Squad. They'll bring it like giving being the only person in the world, I think, to initially give that movie a proper a positive review. Like he is a sellout, right? He is a cut. He is a shill, right? He is a shill for these products and will do anything to defend these things that he's like being paid to defend. And I think there is no better example than that than Star Wars. There was, of course, that like very notorious incident, like when Episode 8 first came out and everybody hated it, and Angry Joe initially like uploaded a video like talking about all the weird problems with it and talking about how terrible it was, and then a full day later, he uploaded an apology video saying that like, ooh, he thought about it some more, and actually all those issues he initially had, all those problems, oh, they were explained in what do you call it, supplementary material, and that justifies everything weird that happened in Star Wars Episode 8. Like, just read the tie-in novels, then it'll make sense, right? Never mind the terrible production, never mind like just the themes and like just the terrible way that movie turned out. Like, oh man, I thought about it some more and I realized that I was wrong to hate this movie. And of course, like Spoonie did something similar. Like, I think it's actually pretty common for people in that sphere, of internet reviewing to try and do damage control for Star Wars Episode 8. But it is something that I think a lot of people, when a bad movie comes out, people are typically talking about the bad movie. They're not talking about critics and their damage control, right? Not usually. We kind of saw the same thing with Barbie, where like Angry Joe came out like religiously defending Barbie while at the same time like condemning the Super Mario Bros. Movie, right? We've seen that, right? But now it seems like he's doing an especially blatant example of this, like right, like the Critical Drinker uploaded a tweet like making fun of like some animation that was in like the Asuka show, the new Star Wars property. He was making fun of like the art style or something. I don't know necessarily what it was. And Angry Joe, of course, like a fucking simp, defending his woman who is currently being fucked by another man. Like Angry Joe comes in like, oh, how dare you make fun of this property? This is the best Star Wars has been in a long time, and you are saying mean things about the creators. You're saying bad things about Mickey's Mickey's new princess, Leia. You're saying bad things about Star Wars, right? How dare you condemn a property that I am a fan of? Like ignoring the past 10 years, ignoring all the mediocre productions that have come out, ignoring just how the brand is just completely dead in the water. There is no hope of recovery for Star Wars, but people like Angry Joe continue consuming every little piece of media that comes out. They eat that goy slop up, that and ask for seconds and thirds. Like they'll keep gorging on it until they drop dead. Okay, that is the situation we're in right now, where like Star Wars has had nothing but bad products since the Disney acquisition. And most mainstream audiences like understand this. They realize the IP is dead. There is no hope for recovery, and they've moved on. People didn't go see to episode 8. There was a clear decline in popularity if you look at like the box office numbers, like going into episode 8 and then going into episode 9. Every new Star Wars series gets less and less enthusiasm. Like I haven't seen people like really talk about Star Wars enthusiastically since like The Mandalorian. And I think that was like more due to like the hype behind Disney Plus than anything else. Like when you actually look at it objectively, when you actually look at the situation the brand is, it's in it's in free fall. There is no hope of recovery. The creators are hacks. They can't make good products, and the property has run out of steam a long time ago, but nobody wants to admit it. And what's more, you have people like Angry Joe doing everything in their power to try and convince you that like, oh, this new Star Wars series, oh, it's going to turn things around. Mandalorian, Asuka, this, that, like everything, Jedi Survivor, Last Outcast. I don't even keep track of all this stuff anymore because we've seen this pattern repeat itself every couple of years since the acquisition. Oh man, the next one will be good. The one after that will be good. The one after that will be the greatest thing you've ever seen. You just gotta keep yourself invested. You gotta keep giving Disney money, and they'll eventually give you what you want, which is a good product. And it is appalling how to this day he's still doing this. He is still sucking Star Wars dick in hopes that like it'll keep his like dying channel going just a little bit longer. It'll give him a little bit more momentum, like that he can like own the haters, own the critical drinker, who I don't like either, by the way, but like that he can just own these people for daring to criticize his precious Star Wars, daring to criticize Disney, the company that is clearly going downhill, right? It's just embarrassing. It really is, and I have to wonder, just is anyone else noticing this? Because it comes off like I'm the only one talking about this in any way, shape, or form at this point. But like, I find myself surprised at how often people bring up Angry Joe and kind of bring up these situations. Like we just had a thread on him on V the other day, and people were bringing up like his defense of like Warhammer 3 and like the Marvel thing, and just like what a poser he is. It's becoming common knowledge, and he has like a dedicated cult following, but like it might result in kind of the same situation that Nick Rekieta is currently in, where like you have a dedicated like cult following who will like religiously follow everything you say, people who like believe in you as an individual and just respect you over everyone else, but like everyone outside of that circle, like they're gonna start seeing you for who you really are. Right, and I think that's what's been happening over the past couple of years. Why the views have been going down is that like more and more people are seeing that Angry Joe is a complete joke. His politics are ridiculous. His opinions on film are ridiculous. Like he doesn't like video games, right? Like he is a brand corporate shill, like most of these YouTubers, and more and more people are starting to wake up to that fact. He might be like the last major that guy with the glasses personality who's still doing like the same thing he was doing like 10 years ago. But it's becoming more and more apparent that like I don't think he has a lot of steam left. Like I think when you hit 40, like these people just kind of like peter out. Like they can't maintain their audience. When your audience like ages out of like watching you and like being invested in what you're doing, and more importantly, I think being invested in like the things you're covering, which I think is very apparent when it comes to Marvel and like Star Wars in particular, where it feels like a lot of the audience is just like losing interest in those properties. Like Angry Joe isn't going to have anything. Like I've been saying this for a long while now, but it feels like once the Marvel fad dies, once all these things he covers religiously like start losing popularity, Marvel in particular, like his channel's going to take like a massive hit, and there will be no recovery. Like the Marvel fad is never coming back. Right? He's never going to win back Nintendo fans when especially after that ridiculous Mario movie review. Like the trend right now seems to be like video game movies are going to be the next big thing, and Joe has kind of already cemented himself as like a fraud who doesn't know what he's talking about. Like I expect by the time that like stuff like the Zelda movie comes out and we start seeing like more expanded universe Nintendo stuff, like I'll have a pretty sizable channel. I'm curious. I'm curious if I'll have like more views on those kind of that kind of content than Joe will at that point. I'm kind of curious. Like it's gonna be like 5 years from now. It's not implausible, right? Like we're already seeing like Razorfist get more views on his TMNT coverage video because first of all, Razorfist is a real fan. He actually reads the comics. He actually does have a very thorough knowledge of like the brand and stuff like that. And second of all, like he actually acknowledged what everyone was thinking about mutants in Manhattan, like the new movie, right? Like he acknowledged that it looked like crap. The animation looked terrible. Like the race swapping of April O'Neil was like unacceptable, and he was just like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna go see it." And I felt the same way. But I saw people like Angry Joe come out and like try to say like, "Oh, this movie was great. It's the best Turtles has been in a long time," and it's just so obviously fake, right? So ridiculous. And I hope that more and more people start waking up to this, right? Right? Like I am tired of being expected to like support mediocre products in order to like support a brand, right? Like I don't support Zelda or Nintendo because of the brand. I support them because they make the best games on the market. Like the best hardware, the most interesting features, the best online play, the best IPs, the best like everything really. Like it all just comes down to like the fact that Nintendo is better than the competition. I don't support them blindly based on this notion that like uh I need to support them because I'm a fan of the brand. And that more and more I'm starting to see that like that's Angry Joe's like thing is that like he has a couple of brands that bring in the dosh, that bring in like the donations, that bring in the views, and he just kind of sticks with them. He just kind of covers them and he defends them to a certain extent, like way past what he should do. Like Game of Thrones is a really good example where like pretty blatant problems with the series. Like I would argue as early as season one, actually as early as the books, specifically because they weren't finished. There were lots of problems with Game of Thrones. Did he acknowledge any of them before like halfway through season 8? No. Like before it was popular to start talking about Game of Thrones, it was like his favorite thing in the world, right? But the instant it like fell off, it stopped being a thing, and that's that. I He doesn't have any real passion. He doesn't have any real credibility. Like he doesn't have any real interest in the stuff he covers. And as a result of that, why would you ever respect this guy or his opinions?